there's another rule, I suppose, a dictum perhaps, that if you don't have your own story, then you're going to be a bit player in someone else's
Amen.
story. Okay, so let's talk about that fog again. So let's say, because of the reasons you already laid out, you don't want to make your conditions for failure conscious, because then you know when you're failing, and that hurts. You don't want to make your plans for the future too clear, because then if you don't attain what you're looking for, it's very clear that you've lost it, which is somewhat different than failure, right? And then there's also the problem that if you make your motives clear to other people, then they really have the ammunition to hurt you, because like, I can hurt you by depriving you of what you want, but I can hurt you even better if I really know what you want and can deprive you of that. So you have reasons to keep these things unclear. And then but the problem then is that you don't have a direction that's powerful, right? Because you're not consulting yourself, watching yourself, learning about yourself, figuring out who you are, and figuring out what kind of route through life you would have to take to be engaged. Okay, so then you get weak because you're not integrated, you're all over the place, you're scattered. Well, then anybody who has power for one reason or another can compete with you for your own attention and win. And so if you don't have your own plan, painful as it is to develop one, partly because you have to take your own inadequacies into account. Oh yes, and you also mentioned, you posit an ideal, this is what I want, or this is who I could be. The farther away that is from you, the more inadequate you feel in relationship to it. If you know what you want, then you know when you're failing. If you don't allow yourself to know what you want, you can keep that foggy. If you don't set out the conditions for your success, then you can avoid your responsibility, because again, that's not clear. And the problem with wanting something is that in all probability, you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to make sacrifices, and it's certainly possible that you want to avoid that. You might be afraid to make it clear because other people could deny it to you too, which is something I write about a fair bit in that chapter. The problem is, and failing to make any of that clear protects you right now. Knowledge emerges in a very strange way. It emerges, obviously, when we learn something, we started out by not knowing it. And so what that means is that knowledge goes through a transformation process from being absolutely not there to being explicit and fully detailed. And one step of that process is emotion. And so, for example, you might find yourself frustrated, disappointed about the events of the day, but be unable to exactly specify why. That's extremely common. You go home to your partner and you be in a bad mood, and you'll snap at them for something, and they'll say, well, what's up with you? And you'll say, well, nothing, you're just being annoying, when it's perfectly clear to both of you that there is actually something up with you. And then that disappointment and frustration, anger and sadness, let's say, or anxiety, is a sign that something isn't right. I think you need a meaning to sustain you in life, because life is difficult, and so the meaning has to be proportional to the difficulty. I think everyone knows that and wants that. Whenever I talk to audiences about that and pointed out that it's through the adoption of responsibility that you're most likely to encounter those meanings, the audiences would generally go silent, because that isn't an equation that's often made.